All right, guys. So I'm here with Dan Bailey. And Dan Bailey and I have known each other for a long time. We're here at Wadapalooza. It's raining outside. So we found ourselves a cozy little environment, sipping on some coffee and talking a little bit of fitness, a little bit of business, and a little bit of maybe Dan Bailey's love life as well. So let's dive right in. What do you think, Dan?
Dive right into what? What's the question? What do I think on all that? Yes, yes, no, yes, and sure.
Perfect.
And we're done.
So Dan, you've been around the sport of CrossFit for a long time. You've accomplished quite a bit in the sport, but I want to go way back to your track days.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you put up some of these throwbacks on social media, I just love them, man. And so talk to us a little bit about what sports did you play growing up throughout high school or even before high school, and what was that like?
Growing up in Ohio, basketball, football are probably the two big ones. I played those quite a bit through, middle school and early elementary days, those kind of things. Those were always the external leagues out of school were always for basketball or something like that. But then kind of as I got into high school, I liked basketball more than I liked anything else. I just wasn't as good at it. And right around my sophomore, junior year, I think when I was a sophomore in high school, or maybe a freshman in high school, I long jumped like just right around 21 feet, which my track coach was kind of blown away.
I mean, that sounds really far.
Yeah, I was a super small kid, and it was the first meet of the year, and it was probably like, in Ohio, it was probably like 30 degrees outside, and I bombed out this huge long jump. And my coach, who was the coach I had for 4 years, pulled me aside, and he's like, "This is your thing. Like, you need to think about doing this, like getting after it in this sport." And so over the next couple of years, like track just kind of became the focus. I had a really great junior year where I went to the state meet and did really well and started getting some scholarship offers to universities. So
as a junior?
Yeah. So that became my avenue my senior year. It's like, well, I'm just going to really go hard after this and see if I can get some opportunities at some bigger schools and that kind of thing. Grew up just loving the Olympics. Carl Lewis, Mike Powell, Michael Johnson, Gail Devers, all those old school athletes like back in the 90s, the 80s, all that stuff. I just loved watching track and field, and I loved to race. Like, I loved competing head to head, knowing that everything's on me. Not that I didn't like team sports, but like when you watch your teammate mess up or you can't get out on the field and do anything about it.
It's outside of that
control. It's like that dual-edged sword of that kind of sport. So in track and field, it's the same kind of thing. It's very dual-edged because it's like I have total control, but it's also all on me. Like it's you out on the track, and there's nothing else there to prevent you or help you to keep going.
So throughout, junior high, et cetera, you were trying different sports. You thought maybe basketball was your thing. You're not the tallest dude in the world, so maybe that wasn't.
No, but I could put down a softball.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I could throw down a softball. I could grab the rim.
All right.
I wanted to be able to dunk before I was 30 initially. And the goal was, okay, maybe before I'm 40, I'll set that goal. But now I don't know. We're on the downslope of that, so we'll see.
So I want to dive into track and field. And so in high school, you then basically put all your, you focused on track and field. That was your sport throughout high school then, after you met your high school coach. And so then you competed for the next 4 years in college?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what events did you do in college?
I did the 100, 200, 400, 4x1, 4x4, and I ran the 800 a couple times. Yeah, it was I ran like way too many events in college. Like that's a lot of events. Like on a particular weekend, I would probably run, I don't know, I'd run the 200, the 400, the 4x1, and the 4x4 almost every weekend.
And that was for what school?
I was for Ohio University.
And so you're at Ohio University and you're competing in these individual events. And like you said, when you play team sports, there's this camaraderie.
Yeah.
There's a lot of benefits to team sports, and I think they're very special. But however, with the individual sports, it really requires that, yes, it is all on you, which is good, but it's also bad. There's a lot of stress that's involved. So talk to me a little bit about how that progressed. So when you were in high school and then going into college, what types of tools, what types of things did you use when you're on the starting block, right? You're looking at these 7 other dudes, whatever it is, and right before that
gun goes off.
What types of things were you doing ahead of time to prepare you mentally for that? And then when the gun went off, what kind of things were you doing?
Sure. and I didn't want to paint the picture like track's not a team sport at all, because it is.
It is
in
a
the
team
end.
sport.
Like, you're training with these guys and going through just grueling workouts, which from doing all the aerobic stuff, being on the track a lot. Like, there's some of the hardest workouts you can do. So yeah, you do still have that bond and that camaraderie on a track team or any other individual sport. But when it does come to the execution, usually it's just you out there. But yeah, to get geared up for it, I actually there's a couple things I would think about. One, there's an old adage from Carl Lewis in one of his books where when you step up onto the line, you have to realize, like, I've prepared for this. I'm ready for this. Like, basically almost like self-talk. Like, right. I'm ready for this. And no matter how you feel in that moment, like, track people can be real finicky about my big toe feels a little off today, right? Because we're talking about tenths of a second or less, hundredths of a second sometimes. But this is the best I'm going to feel today. This is how I feel right now. This is in the moment. There's nothing else, you can't change that right now. So what are you going to do right now when that gun goes off? And that's kind of like gearing you up to none of that stuff matters. Like, I have to perform. I'm going to compete. This is the best I can feel right now. And that stuff's out of my control. Right.
So regardless how you woke up that morning, maybe you're feeling a little bit sick, maybe your hamstring hurts, whatever.
Yeah, that's just what is.
Right.
Like, deal with what is and go do. You know what I mean? Because you can't, some of those things, the things that are outside of your control, you have to let go. Or it's just wasted energy, right?
And so that's what you were thinking going up onto the line, right? Put in your preparation. And when you get into that event, that's the best you're going to feel, period. I mean,
yeah. Hey, I've done the work. I'm ready to do this. And yeah, this is the best you're going to feel, period.
Now, how does faith come into play when you're thinking about that? Because I know you have a lot of faith. And
that was going to be my second pillar.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like,
yeah.
how does that play in though when you're in college and in sport and faith? How does that work?
I mean, there's a verse in the Bible that says, whatever you do for the glory of God. And that carries a lot of weight with it, in my opinion. So if I'm gonna do something to execute and to represent my God and be with the gifts that I've been blessed with this ability to do this, and I want to do the best that I can with it, that means I have to do my due diligence both in preparation and then execution, right? And so, like, I owe that, and I want to show that off. I want to use these gifts to the best of my ability. And then even on the starting line, knowing that my body and soul is not defined by this performance. It's almost like it relieves some of the stress that you put on yourself. Like, what's this person going to think of me if I finish last? What happens if this doesn't go right? What happens if I don't, win the gold medal in this? And it's like, well, hey, your performance or who you are as a person is not defined by this one race. It's not defined by any of the races that you do. My identity is found in Jesus Christ, right? And having that to rest on takes the pressure off of a lot of other worldly things and worldly concerns that can come up.
And I think a lot of people, myself included, maybe don't understand that faith, can say those type of things, but don't actually necessarily believe it as deeply as you seem to or you do, right? Where does that stem from? Because I'd like to, where does faith come from you? Is it something that you were just raised a certain way and you talk to me a little bit about that?
That's a great question. Because, when people talk about like their testimony or, how they came to know Christ or how they became a believer in God or anything like that, I don't have the typical testimony. Like, a lot of people have the moments of, I was hammered in a car one night and I got in an accident and my Bible flew in between me and a spear that like hit me in the chest. And I'm just, that's a literal story I had with a guy in college. People were sharing their testimony and then it was my turn to go. And I'm like, I grew up in Uniontown, Ohio. I had fantastic parents, a great school system. I had a tribe that raised kids in the community that I was in. I grew up in the best possible scenario ever. But some people, they look at all this, the faith stuff, and it gets very behavior oriented, good, bad, this person's good, this person's whatever. And I got very tied up into that, into being a good person and trying to earn like other people's love, God's love, all through just being a good person and trying to constantly do the right thing. And I would kind of beat myself up over that all the time for failing and missing and doing all those things and missing the mark, essentially.
Yeah.
Whether it be, schoolwork, whatever, track, athletics, friendships, relationships, those kind of things. And the realization that I eventually came to and what I kind of learned through, studying the Bible and going to Bible study with friends is that It's not about any of that. It's like the behaviors, the good works. Those should all be an outpouring of your faith and of the things that you want to do. But my faith is defined by knowing that God loves me for who I am, and I am a mess up, and confessing that. And it's not up to me to earn God's love, like to earn that acceptance from God. Like that is not on me. He already does that fully and wholly. My job is just to accept the gift and then walk the best way that I can in the way that he's laid out for my life.
And so that's something that goes. I don't think we could sit here and have this conversation.
Well, yeah,
I want to.
Yeah,
because
I would want to. Yeah,
it's a huge component.
It's a huge component, and it's
it's admirable that you have this as a cornerstone, because most people don't have anything guiding their journey, and you have this, right? And maybe I have other things, but you have this, and I think that's incredible. So as you're going through college, do you feel like there was some pressure before you got on the starting block where you say you're basically you rehearse the Bible verse, right?
Yeah.
Where basically you want to can you say the Bible verse again that you were talking about? That
yeah, I want to everything that I do, I want to give glory to God. And the other verse that I pretty much try to live by is that I would consider my life worth nothing to me if only I finished the task set before me, the task of testifying to the gospel of God's grace.
So with those in mind, right? Does that add pressure at all when you went onto the starting block? And here's what I mean by that. If you're trying to basically glory God by giving this performance,
right?
What if your performance wasn't up to your standard? What if you didn't have a good performance? How was that something that you had to overcome when you were done?
Right. Well, I mean, the good point that you're bringing up is like it always sucks to lose.
Right.
I mean, right? Like it always sucks to not hit the mark and hit your goal, right? But the way you compete, the way you hold yourself in when you introduce that faith component isn't all about winning, right? It is about giving your best effort, doing the best you can with what gifts that you have.
Right.
Like that is part of that worship experience. Like, don't get me wrong. Like the goal is always to win. You always have the mindset of going out to win. If you have that mindset, you're more likely to do your best.
Of course.
But in terms of the representation of the faith component and doing what I know God wants me to do is not so much I have to take first place. It's I have to give the greatest effort that I can and do the best with what he's given me in a certain scenario. And that's put that on a track, that's great, but that can be carried over into any business situation, anything, right? Like here's the situation I'm in, here's what I have to work with. Okay, let's go. Like I'm going to do the best that I can with it. It doesn't matter what this little thing is. I have this little thing. I'm going to be grateful with it. I'm going to be responsible for it and take it to wherever I can.
Right. And so as you're going through college, you graduate, and what made you decide, what did you get into? What type of degree did you pursue in college?
Physical education. I was going to be a coach. Yeah, I actually started in engineering, mechanical engineering. My dad was a mechanical engineer, the smartest human being I've ever met. Like one of those guys who can do calculus just off the top of his head. He used to make me cry when he'd help me with math when I was like really young. Yeah. So I started at engineering and was kind of going that route, but I was just so wrapped up in sports, loved human performance, loved like all the biomechanics classes that I got to take, like the movement of joints and people making prosthetics for that kind of thing. And so that whole thing just really interested me about the science of the human body, basically. I had great coaches, great teachers growing up too, and that kind of inspired me to want to be a teacher coach kind of thing. And I got a physical education degree from Ohio University.
And then you went on to get a master's in kinesiology?
Master's in, basically strength and conditioning, fitness and wellness, something like that at Tennessee Tech,
So, I mean, you're a guy who's really dedicated himself to improving others' lives and yourself, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're out there competing, you're out there doing these things. And I want to talk about, how did that shift now? How'd you find CrossFit coming out of track? I remember you and I, first time I met you, had even heard of you. We were at the Rogue Arnold.
Oh,
yeah. Remember Arnold Schwarzenegger was there?
We
got to shake his hand.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I could have died right there.
Dude,
that's it. Yep.
And so I remember we were getting teamed up. And we were getting teamed up with people to do Grace
or something.
Right?
Yeah.
And we're all getting teamed up, and
I was so nervous. You're the new kid on the block.
Like, oh yeah, you're with this guy, and I was like, oh, okay, he's wearing like a red headband.
Yeah.
And I'm like, who the heck is this kid? And then I remember someone coming to me, was like, hey, this kid, this guy he's fast. I was like, okay. I just remember you and I did partner grace. But that was the first time I met you. But that was a great moment. And since then, we've had a relationship. We've gotten to compete in the CrossFit Games together. So how did you get introduced to CrossFit?
Right.
I assume it was before that time.
Yes. So I got my degree from OU, and I went to actually out to Fresno, California.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine, JT Thiessen, and I met him on a couple mission trips I'd been on. We've done a couple mission trips together, ran into each other on like athletic teams.
Where'd you do mission trips at?
I actually went to Fiji, which doesn't sound like the worst place on planet Earth.
Huh?
Yeah, no, but we centered our stuff in Suva, Fiji, and we were over there to work with their national track and field team.
Okay.
So that was actually our one of the main things that we were going there to do, was to go and train with the national track and field team, but then also represent the gospel of Christ. So
did you go elsewhere, or was it just Fiji?
Just Fiji. I'd been there 2 times, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, went there 2 times for that. So once just to establish relationships, and then once again kind of follow up with the people there.
Very cool.
But yeah, so got to work out with the national team there and stuff, and then I met JT on that trip. And we connected after I graduated, and he's like, yeah, I've got an assistant coaching position at Fresno Pacific University. If you want to come out and do a little coaching with me and, figure things out from there,
yeah,
do it. And I'm like, I got nothing else on the table. Like, cool. This is an experience that I haven't had before, and some stuff I've never done with like actually coaching track and field. So I went out there, did that for about 2 years. And while I was there, I got a physical education teaching job at Fowler University or Sutter Middle School in Fowler, California, which is right outside of Reedley, all very small towns in the Central Valley.
So how many years did you actually spend teaching strength and conditioning or PE at any schools?
I taught PE for 2 school years.
And so what did you learn from that? Because I imagine that must be really tough.
Yeah.
What age group did you work with?
Middle schoolers.
Middle schoolers?
I learned that coming out of college, I knew nothing about teaching.
Dude, I mean, because like these middle school, did they run the show?
No, the other teacher that was there, who had been there for a while, like I was kind of coming in alongside him, he had a pretty tight grip on things. But our classes were 40 to 60 kids.
Yeah.
In a PE class, trying to figure out how to, just the organization and how to make that work.
And I imagine at an early age coming out of college, that probably played a lot of benefit for you, because you had to learn how to, you had to learn how to
interact.
And then also, group management, things of that nature. I mean, did that start to carry over into later things you were doing?
Oh, absolutely.
Like with adult classes, things like that?
Yeah, for sure. And it was, it's kind of interesting because some of the same principles still apply with how you deal with middle schoolers and how you deal with like adults in a class.
Yeah.
Like the organization of like, I need you to line up here and we need to do this. And like, yeah, so trying to bridge that gap sometimes, like don't reinvent the wheel. Like this works here, it's going to work there, that kind of thing. But did that for about 2 years, and I was actually on a grant at that school. So the grant ran out, and I was just coaching. I also worked at REI. I had like 3 jobs at the time and still kind of running and doing some things, trying to work out. And actually, that's the first time somebody mentioned the word CrossFit to me. The kid on the track team was like, hey, I just found this website, or my buddy mentioned it, called CrossFit.com. You'd probably be really good at it because, I'd work out and lift weights with the guys every now and then, and I could do more pull-ups than them or whatever, just pull-ups and stuff. And I went to the website, and I was like, I don't have time for this because I'm still running. You know what I mean? Or I still want to like keep running a little bit.
Yeah, of course.
And I ended up moving back to Ohio to do some more education, start my master's degree in strength and conditioning, or, there's a couple different terms that could fall under. But, and also get another degree in physics and chemistry for teaching, because PE, I'm starting to see the signs that like schools cut that stuff pretty quick once budget hits. And I'm like, I don't want to deal with that for the rest of my life. Like if I can get a PE job, great, but it'd be good to have some science behind it. So I started going back to school at the University of Akron for those 2 things. And that's when I started working out at the Akron Rec, and I ran into a guy, the same people are always working out at like 5:30, 6 in the morning. And so you just start working out together. Inevitably, you start talking. And his name was Will, and he was a member of CrossFit Legacy in Barberton, Ohio. And he's like, hey, you're going to like this CrossFit stuff. Like you ran track, racing, like it's right up your alley. Here's a workout. Here's Grace, actually, right?
Of course.
It's 135-pound clean and jerks. We went back in this little basketball court, and he had the bar set up, did a little warm-up, and he's like, all right, so you do this 30 times as fast as you can.
How long did it take you the
and
first
I'm
time?
like, 30 reps as fast as I can. I'm like, that's it? He's like, that's it. And so we went. I started going, and it just went like bat out of hell, like as fast as I
Yeah,
could.
of course.
Right
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
full gas pedal. And there were probably plenty of bro reps in there, like plenty of reps that didn't count. But the first time I did it in 90 seconds.
Okay.
It's like he stopped the watch and he's just like, "You're coming to the gym tomorrow."
And that's what happened.
Yeah,
And so at that time, you said there's a 5:36 a.m. crew.
yeah.
So when you were doing, were you double majoring then?
Technically, yeah, master's and another undergrad.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
how were you balancing your schedule out between your fitness and going to school? And did you have any relationships at the time? What types of work ethic were you implementing? How were you doing that at that time?
Yeah, I mean, just setting up a schedule. I mean, it's stuff that like, I don't know. To me, like things can get overcomplicated with like just discipline, and it's like I know that I have these tasks that I need to do, and I want to do them well. Like I need to work. Like it just seems so simple to me. I don't know. So I don't consciously think about like dealing. I'm not dealing with anything. Like I'm pursuing something that I love, I guess is the best way to put it,
Yeah.
right? I don't think of dealing with all these different moving parts. It's like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah, so
like I love doing this and I enjoy doing all these things. So I'm going to set my day up to accomplish it.
So do you feel that same way right now? I mean, because right now, here we are, and you have fitness as a huge priority of your life.
Yeah.
But you also work at Rogue Fitness as a coach for all of their employees, which is great.
Right.
Basically, everything you do you not really look at it as like, hey, these are my. You just want to do each one of them. You just need to get it done every day.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the way it goes?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, like obviously I've made a pretty big transition in the past like year and a half I was just pretty much doing the athlete thing for a while and doing stuff for sponsors and that kind of thing. And then got that opportunity at Rogue. So transitioned back into coaching. And that wasn't easy at the start, a little bit, but that's part of my witness. That's part of the way I want to serve other people is bring this knowledge that we have of the human body and how to avoid chronic disease and how to increase your work capacity. I want to bring that to people to improve their quality of life. And that's happening at the gym with the simple eat meat, vegetables, nuts, seeds, all that good stuff. Guys are dropping, 20 to 30 pounds. And then one guy's off is I don't even think he was in for 6 months. He just really got after it, like really like changed the way he was eating and working out and everything. And doctor came in one day. He's like, "Yeah, you don't need your cholesterol, blood pressure
How
medicine
cool is
anymore."
that?
Yeah.
And so that for you is obviously, and for me, owning gyms, I mean, that's a huge part of what we're doing,
Right.
is making this big impact. But if we want to back up, once you found CrossFit and you really got into competing,
Yes.
you started training with Rich, and how many times did you go to the CrossFit Games?
5.
Five
in
times
a
CrossFit,
row. Yeah.
5 in a row.
Yeah.
And then at regionals, so you qualified through regionals at that time?
Yes. Yeah,
And
exactly.
Did you get to a point where you didn't qualify without being from an injury?
No, I mean 2016 I didn't qualify, and you could kind of blame it on that, like some things, but I didn't do what I needed to do to prepare. That's the way I look at it. I wasn't prepared enough to beat the competition, and then I got beat.
And so you're at the games for 5 years straight.
Yeah.
And during that time, what kind of things did you incorporate that allowed you to be successful and qualified for the CrossFit Games? Like, what did you learn by training with Rich and other people that allowed you to get back to the games every single year for 5 years in a row? Because the competition was getting more aggressive and you were able to stay relevant in it and perform well.
Right. That's a good question. I mean, I guess the thing that really paid off was just obviously having that group of people who were like, we all had a common goal, especially Rich and I. And
Yeah.
then there were other people like the Mayhem team and those kind of, just a big group of people who all were on board with this. Like, we want to be successful with this. We want to see you and Rich at the top. We want, all those kind of things. So there was a big support group down there, which, as you know, you've been there. That's what they do. They do fitness in Cookeville, right?
That's right.
And so we did that every day, along with, going to school at Tech and finishing the master's degree actually down there, transitioning down to Cookeville after I met Rich in 2011 at the games. But yeah, I mean, having that shared goal, that common goal, and both he and I share the same faith beliefs. We believe that what we're doing is, to glorify God, to spread his gospel, to spread the word, and to spread his good news through the sport of fitness. And some people think that's weird, but at the same time, you read the whole Bible, God changed the world with a group of fishermen. Like, it's not about the profession that you're in. It's about the faith, the attitude, and the what's the word I'm looking for? The discipline or the responsibility to just live a godly life no matter where you're at.
So you're in Cookeville and you're training and how important, because I think for anybody looking to come up and improve in whatever sport they're doing, right? It doesn't
Yeah,
have to be CrossFit. Do you believe that was instrumental to your success? Is surrounding yourself with like-minded people who are trying to get to where they wanted to get to?
absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
For a whole bunch of reasons. Like, I mean, like-minded people can, and people who care about you and care about your well-being and care about your success, to point out like, hey, this is wrong either in your life or in your fitness. For example, like, hey, you're really struggling here and you don't look good doing this and you're weak here. And so you have those people to point those things out about yourself, because you're constantly alone. You can just put the blinders on and like, I'm just doing what I'm doing, and you'll never improve.
Right.
Right. And having that humility to say, I'm not that good at this area, whatever that might be. And I need help in this area. Or I need, those kind of things. I think that is definitely one of those things that enabled me to keep going back year after year.
Well, so on that note, and I want to get back to 2016, but so at the time you're training with Rich and you're getting this peer review of how you're performing.
Yep.
How's your faith? How these different areas in your life, right? Because you're able to bat it off each other. But do you also do that individually? So when you left Cookeville, right, was that something that was that a void that you had to fill on your own? Did you do self-evaluations on a regular basis? What type of things do you do on an individual basis to evaluate how well you're doing as a son of God, as a competitor? I mean, what are you thinking about in your head to evaluate your own self, because now you no longer have this Cookeville crew to help you with that?
Man, that's a good question. That's a tough one. Yeah. Because I think sometimes I get just super busy and wrapped up in other things. I don't take time to sit down and just self-evaluate myself. But recently, like, usually the first 15 minutes of my day is spent with God, or spent with reading the Bible, or trying to learn something along that path, which I can take elsewhere. And so, like, usually that first 15 minutes of the day is like a self-evaluation period. A time for me, it's prayer. People might call that meditation. People might call it whatever.
Right.
But it's a time where I can sit down for 15 minutes, try to learn something about myself, learn something for, what I feel like the Lord wants me to do for that day, or some kind of different goal or something else that's been put on my heart. And then take that into the day and into the week and into the month, and slowly make changes from there.
And that's a daily ritual that you try and put in.
Yeah, every day. Try to take 15 minutes. Sometimes it's not in the morning. Sometimes it's in the afternoon then, just if I have to start the morning super early. But yeah, usually 15 minutes every day of sit down and like, this is me time. I need to take this moment to evaluate what I'm doing myself. And for me, Bible study, whatever, that kind of thing.
So going into 2016 CrossFit Games where you didn't qualify.
Yeah.
What do you think was ultimately the factor that didn't allow you to qualify then, but you had qualified 5 years previous? Right.
I just don't think I prepared well enough. I think the 2015 season took a lot out of me, and I probably took a little bit more time. I don't want to say recovering, but like backing off some of the training, and I didn't train enough of my weaknesses good enough, and a lot of them showed up at regionals. Like all of a sudden it was like, oh boy, that event and that event and that event and that event. I know I struggle here, I struggle there, and like going into it, I still believe that I could make it. I still believe that I'm good enough to do this, but it became very like in the reevaluation after I was done, it was like, yeah, you did not prepare well enough for this. And so I mean, at the same time, like it was in the same stroke, like some things didn't go my way. Like I made some tactical errors. Like I stayed on a pull-up bar. Like he was trying to send me out. Like I finished, and I just sat there and kept doing pull-ups, like thinking that I wasn't done, but my judge was sending me. And it's like, there's wasted time. You're watching people like run down the line. You can say anything about judging anytime, but the truth is people get reps taken from them, and they get reps that should have been taken from them.
You know what, man?
Goes
I've had
both
it go
ways.
both ways.
Yeah.
And so at regionals, what place did you take that year?
I think I took 7th. I think it was like 30 points out of 5th. And so what I needed to be, 30 some points.
So how'd that make you feel? I mean, were you like, quote, heartbroken?
Oh, yeah. So it's interesting because I talk about, you talk about having the focus on God, and my performance doesn't define me and all those things. But what's interesting is everybody takes that as I'm never going to feel bad. And it's like, that's not the case. That's not actually what the gospel preaches. Christ says, come suffer with me, come walk with me, and I'm going to walk you through your suffering. You know what I mean? Which requires you to be low, right? Requires you to feel bad, to learn from those experiences. Right. So yeah, I was devastated. It was I was like embarrassed. I was just disappointed in myself. It was everything. It was frustrating.
So you're having this low, right? But what did you, I mean, Going into 2017 season, what happened then?
I tore my pec.
You tore your pec.
Yeah.
And so now, and then going into 2018 season, what happened then?
Yeah, 2018 season, I ruptured my quad tendon.
Okay, so let's talk about it for a minute. So 16, you don't qualify.
Yeah.
You start going down, quote, right? Then 17 and 18, you both have injuries.
Yep.
So now, how do you overcome that? Because for so many years, you've been competing at a high level. I imagine you accomplished quite a bit of success in track and field,
Yeah.
right? Then you come right out of track and field and you accomplish, pretty good success in CrossFit.
Right.
But now all of a sudden you're looking at 3 years of kind of this not being able to kind of glorify this hard work you've been putting in, things of that nature,
right,
for a number of different reasons. So how do you get through all of that and still be a positive influence on your community at Rogue and your community outside and prepared to get ready for the next thing that you want to do?
Yeah. I mean, I think coming off of 2017 especially is like the first time it started to enter my mind of, hey, maybe it's time to start transitioning. Even all of 2017, I had a rough year with just trying to get over bumps and bruises and injuries and that kind of thing. And actually in 2018, the start of 2018 in January, I went to a doctor and I'm like, I need all sorts of MRIs. I need to get checked out, And I decided like, okay, well, I'm just going to do the open and see how I do. I had actually planned in 2018, maybe I'll do the open and then, hey, let's take the year off. Like the wheels are kind of coming off a little bit. I couldn't get like 3 weeks in where my back hurts this week and I can't do anything. My knee's hurting so bad today, I can't do anything, trying to put in the training that I had used to and that I know is necessary to be competitive. And then it just, so happened another injury. So it's one of those things too, where I can look at it and be like, hey, maybe you need to start reading the signs. Maybe somebody's telling you something here. Like it's time to start devoting more time to other things and use your skills elsewhere.
And so, for me, I feel like I've had those times where someone's showing me a different way, a different path potentially. And so how are you using that now, right? Because you feel your body kind of starting to break down.
Yeah.
And here we are in 2019, beginning of 2019. And what do you think your body's telling you? Where do you think that you want to put your energy into? Because you've had a couple of years where you've had to focus on other things and it's been able to, create a career at Rogue. You've been able to make such a big impact on the community. Where do you see Dan Bailey pursuing for the next, year or two? What's initially your thoughts?
Right. It's interesting you mentioned that. And like that's a good question. And then what we had talked about before, where you have peers of people who are better at certain things than others, and so I look at you and I look at a guy like you and I'm like, gosh, Jason is so good at building a brand. Like Jason is so good at, putting himself out there. He's so good at speaking, excellent coach, and like building his business and what he stands for and building a brand around that. I'm like, that's something I want, but I know that I'm not very good at. So it's taken me a longer time to kind of develop that. So moving forward, that's something that I definitely want to do. Something that I definitely want to, try to pursue in another way that I can give back to the community and just put information out that I feel is valuable that I've learned over the course of all the things that we just talked about.
Yeah. Because look at you. I mean, dude, you've been in the, you are literally a pillar of strength and conditioning you've been doing this for so long. You have such a wealth of knowledge and you're a great coach.
Right.
So what types of things are you going to do? And for anybody maybe listening who is thinking the same thing, right there, man, I have 20 years of experience. I have this.
Yeah.
What types of things are you thinking about in the next 12 months to put you in a better position to build a bigger brand, to build a bigger audience? What types of things are you thinking about to help you get to where you want to get to?
Right. Everything starts for me with how can I improve the quality of somebody else's life? I don't like to look at, usually when we start talking about that, like how can I build a band? How can I put myself out there? It's like, how can I make money? How can I start selling myself? And I've been down that road a little bit, or like just been down that avenue, like, with having discussions with people, you should be doing this, you should be doing that, you'll make all this money. And it's like, it just feels weird to me. It doesn't sit well with like my soul, like my being. And so I'm trying to direct that focus into, hey, what do you care about that you want people to know? And like, that may not generate a whole bunch of income, but that's what's going to bring you the most happiness and you're going to be the most into and the most dedicated to because it's important to you. Right. And so trying to find those things and push them forward into whether that's a book, like you've seen me with the camera walking around to do some YouTube stuff. Danny Broflex, making some people laugh, maybe, I don't know, or some skits, whatever that is, trying to build platforms to drive that stuff out there. So whether it's through YouTube, I know you just wrote a book. Yeah. I would love to write a book on just my thoughts on strength and conditioning and everything that I've learned over the years. To accomplish those things, I have no idea how to do them right now, but
Well,
it's
you and
part of the process.
we'll talk
We'll
some more
talk.
about
Okay.
that. But I think so. Going back to the money thing, because I think that's an interesting point. I just want to touch base on this real quick. Have you had times in your life where you've been asked, or because I mean, you've built up this quote celebrity status and audience. Have you had people come into the space who are saying, "Hey, you can make money here. Let's do this," and then you've done it? What have you learned from that experience? Have you done anything where you kind of like look back, you're like, "Oh man, that wasn't the right thing"? Have you taken sponsorships because of the money, where you look at it, you're like, "Oh, I didn't really align with that brand," or has there
Yeah,
been situations like that?
a little bit. Yeah, and I mean, well, I'm not going to go into any
Right,
details,
of
but
course.
yeah, there were just some things where those situations were, and I knew that it didn't sit well with me, and so even though there was still some money there, it was like, I'm good. Like this isn't something that I want to pursue. I'm not really. It's going to be bad for you, and it's going to be bad for me
Right.
because, and it doesn't mean that I don't like you, but it's just not. It's not what I'm into, and if I'm not going to be into it, you're not going to get what you want out of me. So why do this? You know what I mean?
Why
Like
even go down
why?
that path?
Yeah, why even go down that path?
And so I think, kind of summarizing, wrapping up this conversation, where do you see the CrossFit Games space going in the next 12 to 24 months with all the sanctioned events, with the changes that we're having? What impact does that play on you personally? And what impact do you think that has on the sport?
I have no. I mean, right now, my knee-jerk reaction when regionals went away was, upset. I was angry. I was like, "Oh, this doesn't make sense. This is ridiculous." Especially because that's the system that I came through
Right.
and came to accept and love. Um, but like anymore, I'm just like, we'll see. Like that's all I really have right now is we'll see. I'm not gonna say good. I'm not gonna say bad. I'm sure there's plenty of things that everybody can criticize on any level, and that's really easy to do.
Of
Like it's
course.
very easy to criticize everything, and I get caught up in that sometimes. Having conversations, and you'll just like just word vomit, like hate or criticisms that are unwarranted because you're not even sitting in the chair. You know what I mean? So I was sad to see regionals go, just as a nostalgia thing. It's just the way that I love to do it. I understand kind of why it had to go, and that there's a new format now, and we'll see what happens come August. Like I'm going to be interested to see just what happens at the games, how these changes kind of affect the athlete pool, the competition itself, the like what other hurdles are we going to all run into when we're trying to qualify people in these different processes? Like what's all that going to look like? And I mean, in general, everybody wants this thing to still be around and be really big, and everybody loves the sport of fitness. So, we'll probably go through a rough patch here for the next, I don't know, maybe a year or two with just a lot of things changing and going on. But hopefully, I can play my part in keeping things going and keeping the sport of fitness alive. So.
Yeah, I mean, from based on what I'm seeing at Wadapalooza, it's alive and well. There's a lot of people
Yeah,
here.
there's a lot of people here. Yeah.
And so for people who want to know more about, Dan Bailey, they want to know more about your Brofex. I mean, when I know you, there's so many sides to you. There's so much depth, right? From all you've learned over the years. And I can't wait for you to try and find a way to, share that deeper with your audience, because you do have so much knowledge to share, and you're not just a dude with killer biceps and nice abs, right?
Yeah.
And I can't wait for you to be able to pursue that. So if people want to know more about what you have going on, if people want to follow your journey, where should they go?
Right now, it's just Instagram. Instagram and Facebook are my two biggest platforms. But from there will be where I launch some other stuff. Website coming up, hopefully, YouTube channel, and whatever else from there.
Perfect.
So,
What's the Instagram?
Dan_Bailey9. Worst name ever.
Hey,
Gotta
Dan
change that.
_Bailey9. And just one last note for anybody coming up in the sport, for anybody with their business, with whatever they have going on in their lives, what type of, aside from your 15-minute evaluation on a regular basis, reading the Bible and things of that nature, what other types of mindset do you take into everything else in your life that you think other people can start to incorporate into their lives to help reach their potential in different areas?
Yeah, I mean, these injuries have really made me, like this past year, I've had 3 surgeries. It really made me realize you only get one time around. Like, this is it. You better make the best of what time you have. You know what I mean? Don't waste anything. Don't waste, like when I look back at the competition, all my competition stuff, it's like, hey, that might be over. Like it went by so fast. And it's like that chapter might be closed. You know what I mean? So don't waste your time. Don't waste your time sitting around worrying about different things. Just do the thing that you're passionate about and do it to the best of your ability.
I love that. Well, Dan, thank you very much. And I hope you guys enjoy this episode. And let's go check out Wadapalooza.
Thanks.